Hello, and welcome to the Rules of Acquisition Remix. My name is Hugh Crawford. I am 1/3 of the Kickers of Elves, and today I will be your host. You can follow me on Instagram at HughBot_Crawford. Today we're going to be talking about the episode Armageddon Game, which originally aired on September 19th, 2016. So, stick around after the episode and I will take a little dive into some information that may have changed or things that we may have missed in this episode. Thanks. Enjoy the show.
On the far side of this wall live the Zooks. Oh yeah, it's time you knew of the terrible horrible thing that Zooks do. Oh yeah. In every Zook town every Zook eats his bread with the butter side down. Oh yeah. It's time for the rules of acquisition.
Hello and welcome to the Rules of Acquisition, a podcast where we will be talking about the world's best show ever. Yes, I'm talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. With me, as always, is James Nolan.
Hello, gentlemen.
And also Hugh Crawford.
Hey, how we doing?
I'm doing all right. My name is Wade Bowen. And yeah, we'll just jump right into it. We're talking about the Armageddon Game.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
The Armageddon Game. It originally aired January 30th, 1994. It is episode 13 of season 2. The IMDb description is as follows. Chief O'Brien, who still doesn't like the good Dr. Bashir, must rely on him when the two are stranded on a planet and O'Brien is infected with a deadly, fast-moving disease. All right, guys. Well, let's get into it. What did you guys think about the Armageddon Game?
There's good stuff in this one, and then there's not as good stuff about it. There's some things I had real angry nerd corner thoughts about. But
Okay, I'm interested in that. I thought it was overall sort of just a fine, like a fine episode with like parts that were not. I don't think anything ever got in the lower register of good. Like I think it was a solid story that had like maybe some high points than
was this
we've been experiencing for a while.
Well, this one was the most. This one, as far as I'm concerned, was the most Star Trek episode we've had in season 2, and maybe the most Star Trek episode that we've had for the whole run of the whole series. And my thinking is that this could have happened on a ship. This whole story could have happened on a ship. The Commander Sisko acts like a normal Star Trek captain would have acted by going in and investigating this. And I think that maybe, I don't know the origins of this particular script. James, do you have any?
Yeah. I wrote down, I think, let me guess. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was an old Next Generation script.
Actually, it's not.
Wow.
I know. It's not. First off, I would comment on you that I think that it actually feels like the most of all of those shows we've watched. I think it feels most like the original series. You have like a Bones episode, a Bones and Spock episode.
It starts with them on location talking about this problem they're solving for what in the original series would be a colony of humans on a planet or something. Yeah.
And then it ends with this sort of shoehorned Kirk is awesome sort of thing just to make William Shatner shut up. So like it's like an awesome like pilot thinker, like a tactical mastermind. So like I think that's what it felt like to me. So I actually I just enjoyed like the old school sort of feeling of the episode. But no, it was pitched by a guy named
I've got a few different writers on this here. Morgan Gindel?
Yes. Yeah, Morgan Gindel. Yes. I thought it was Morgan Grindle, but it's Morgan Gindel. Yeah, he was like a TV guy. He wrote Law and Order stuff. He was like in that Dick Wolf circle of like people.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
so he was like, I can write a Star Trek script, and I guess I'll write it for DS9. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And so he pitched it as it was Bashir and Dax originally. Like, according to Memory Alpha, he pretty quickly dropped that and made it O'Brien at their request. That O'Brien and Bashir go down to a alien culture and tell them to stop manufacturing a biological weapon. and they cunningly weave the biological weapon's DNA into O'Brien's so that it puts Cisco in to destroy the weapon, he has to destroy O'Brien. Okay. They rejected that and said, we want a chase story. So he pitches this, and he writes this sort of elaborate chase story with a lot of different planets, and it's about Bashir and O'Brien having to planet hop back to Deep Space Nine to uncover the plot, the murder plot. They go with that and they accept it, and then they price it out. Just like we've said 1,000 times on the show. They priced it out, and then they said, fuck it, make it one set.
Right,
whole episode, one set. So he's like, a chase episode in one set? And they were like, yeah. And so I don't think Gendel wrote that part, but Ira Bear, I think, wrote it, but I don't think he took credit for it.
Oh, yeah. So they have two sets. They have the laboratory and the planet.
Yeah, exactly. That's
they have a laboratory and a matte painting, and then just a room they can just put some boxes in.
Yeah, just some boxes in a dusty old room.
Yeah,
and a little bit of light outside. Yeah, no. So that was sort of the goofy genesis of this episode. But I get the feeling that, I don't know, I mean, Law & Order's good. And right. I assume that this guy is probably used to not having his scripts being budgeted down.
Right. Yeah, so it starts off, they're solving basically this biological weapon, except they don't ever call it that. It's it's the Harvesters, which, okay,
it's confusing as hell.
Yeah,
too,
that's the dumbest use of a great name for a weapon of mass destruction, because it doesn't harvest any. It's just it's like sarin gas or something. It's just a biological weapon. It's got nano stuff in it so that they need an engineer so they can bring O'Brien in. Yeah. But if they're going to call it a harvester,
exactly. But sarin gas,
make it harvest something.
Yeah,
it harvests information and reuses it, and that's why it's so diabolical, because it's harvesting DNA and then turning that against it, and it changes or something. It's not hard to write something to where you explain it away where the name actually makes some fucking sense.
And also for this really horrible biological weapon, the effects on O'Brien is basically he gets flu-like symptoms for 24 hours. You don't see super gross shit going. It's not like his eyeballs are bleeding, his head splitting open. There's worse biological weapons now.
Right.
Sarin gas is pretty fucked up. Yeah, I don't understand, it seems like kind of a lame biological weapon just all around.
Yeah. But, it's just an excuse to get them and having a good O'Brien and Bashir story, which it is, actually.
Now, did you guys have a problem with the logic behind the bad guy's motivation? Fake O'Brien and Bashir's death in order to get rid of anybody who had knowledge of the biological weapon, so it can't be recreated again.
Right.
And the thing is if once somebody on your planet hears of something that existed and it existed before, you're never going to be able to stop somebody from trying to. Yeah, right. If it was achievable the first time, somebody somewhere can engineer it. So by killing everybody off, I understand that you lessen the odds of that happening, but it's not. They're acting like they're good people, but they have to do this because it's the most practical thing. But it's not. It's a completely impractical.
In a sense, that's how the title of the episode is Armageddon Game, because it's probably whoever wrote it was really into game theory or something, of how to war game out a doomsday scenario. It's you have to kill everybody that has knowledge of it, and that's it's a logic game, and that's kind of plays into the title,
like a thought experiment gone horribly wrong.
Exactly.
Actually, it reminded me of, what did they say, that Ivan the Terrible, whose architects did the minaret in the Kremlin, he had them blinded after they were done because he didn't want them to ever create anything as beautiful for anyone else. Or it sounds like one of those ideas that are, no, it's history, it's kind of a cool thing, but it's, I don't know, it seems kind of ridiculous.
And it's
especially since these people are going to be leaving and going into a giant faceless bureaucracy of the Federation, never to be heard from by the Dr. Seuss
yes, that was the Talani and the Kelleran, who have been at war, and from in my head, the way I picture it, it's kind of a butter battle book kind of.
Yes, they have Seussical hair, all of them.
Yeah, you have your stupid haircut going this way, and we have our stupid haircut going that way. We hate each other. Let's have a butter battle.
The whole time I was this is the dumbest look.
Yes.
There was two things in the first scene I was just distracted by. I had to keep pausing it. I was distracted by one is their dumbass hair. And they were just, each one got more and more ridiculous. It was like a parody of like going to church side of hair. Like, I don't know. Each one was bigger. Everyone that walked into that room got bigger and more elaborate. And then the guys that came in with the guns at the end, they were swept back into a long ponytail.
Yeah.
Like, the way sometimes it had wrinkled ramen noodle.
Right. That was the Talani. And then the Kelleron have this. Actually, I almost like, is their hair? Are these aliens like a real subtle fuck you to Babylon 5? Because there's one of the main alien races on Babylon.
Like. What year did Babylon 5 air?
The next year, and there's all kinds of like pissing contests and dick.
All right, so we got that to look forward to in 1995, huh?
Yeah. Like, oh, Babylon, all the nerds online are like, Babylon 5 nerds are like, oh, DS9 just stole the idea from Babylon 5 was first, and then DS9 people are, well, we came out first, motherfucker. It's like, yeah, well, it's because Paramount's a bunch of dicks. It's like, oh, yeah, well, everybody's right.
It does seem like the idea was stolen from Michael Straczynski, but no.
Oh yeah, well, even it's a space station with a number in it.
Yeah,
come on,
yeah. It's pretty. The other thing that was distracting to me is the main little doctor guy that was featured through the whole first scene is Leon from Deadwood. When he dies, I was like, oh, they didn't even give him a little ball of dope. The whole time I was just distracted. I was like, Leon's in this episode, and like in a minute, he dies. So I was like, fuck this show.
It's a good episode, but yeah, the Harvester thing, and where the hell is this planet? That's why I was like, it's a Star Trek episode, because like, come on, man, just like, they can get to it real easy on a shuttlecraft, and within an hour, at the end of it, Bashir's like, we have to get him back to the station or he's dead in the next hour. Okay, where the hell is this planet?
Yes.
Just do a setup, come across this planet where people are at war, and they're like, and they have this evil weapon of mass destruction, and they're like, hey, we're the Federation, we can help you with this, and there you go. But it's like, there's no, it's, floating out this nebulous space wherever the hell this planet, like, the Talani system is, or there's a whole network of Talani 3, Talani Prime. I guess there's Kelleron planets, but we never hear about those.
And I don't get it, because like the Federation has ships out their asshole, but Cisco and Deep Space Nine, they have jobs. There's been assassination plots and 3 like takeovers of the goddamn station. They've got like real work to do, and you keep sending them on this like little like small file like bullshit. Isn't that what the ships are supposed to do?
We're out at the edge of this is frontier space, man. We don't have as many ships.
But they do have that many ships because it's a neutral zone.
And that's another aspect of this that really bothered me, is that when they said nobody can know about this weapon. Anybody who has knowledge of this has to die. And O'Brien and Bashir would have been like, no, we do shit like this every day. We're tearing down stuff every day for folks. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Number one, the Federation is so big with so many endless resources. If we wanted to come up with a horrible weapon to destroy y'all, we would have done it.
I mean, O'Brien does have a line at one point. It's like, well, if anybody wants to do this, they're going to have to start from scratch, and it's going to be real hard.
I know. You get to watch it twice. Right. Three times in the episode he says that same line, because they play it back on the videotape. And it just seems to me that, like, at some point, like, you really fucked with the Federation, Butter Battle people. Is there no retribution? Like, how does the Federation have any credibility in space if you can just try and kill 2 of their officers, high-ranking officers, without any...
Yeah, Cisco tells them at one point, like, by firing on the shuttlecraft, you've just started a war, a declaration of war with the Federation.
The episode should have just ended with a slow shot of the planet, and, like, Galaxy Cruiser just comes by and just blows up a city, like, moves on. That's the way Rome did it. Or you
set it somewhere in the Gamma Quadrant, and then they talk about, like, well, fuck it, we're going back to the... Dominion.
Oh, if it's in the Gamma Quadrant, everything is... A lot of these little problems are fixed.
Right, but it's not. And I don't think it's in the Gamma Quadrant, because there's no mention of the wormhole at all.
No, these people are acting like they're in the community. You know, they're living in the normal community that Star Wars or Star Trek takes place.
This feels like a problem that the Enterprise, the flagship of the Federation, would have handled on its way to or from Deep Space Nine.
And that's why I felt like it was like the most Star Trek. You know, like Odo and Kira really don't do anything other than just like.
Well, you thought Odo was going to be like you think that Odo is going to be the one that figures out that the tape is fake. Which, by the way, this whole no spoiler alert, but this whole faked videotape of a death thing is much better done in a later episode.
Yeah, we won't say much more about that.
It seems like Odo is going to be the one that does that instead of this sort of let's give Keiko something to do. And that's the part I like the most is Keiko's grief. That was well done.
Yeah, that's where this episode is good. And they all think that Bashir and O'Brien are dead. All that stuff is great. Mm-hmm. And then O'Brien and Bashir on the planet having their heart-to-heart about what marriage, and that stuff's fantastic. It does great job setting up the Julian O'Brien dynamic. So I can't complain about that, but it's just the angry nerd corner stuff for me.
Yeah, it's a lot of like, I mean, the core of this episode isn't rotten like it has been for so many episodes we've watched the last 5 weeks, but like the dressing is kind of rotten. Do we want to start talking about the Bashir and O'Brien stuff now?
Yeah, the heart to heart.
Some of this is going to be tied up on what I would change to this episode, but like I like the setup. I like the heart to heart. It just seemed like such a perfect setup for them to bond that I was sort of shocked how trite their bonding was.
See, I mean, like O'Brien is the best like grumpy bastard in this. Like, and then Julian does a good job at this. He's basically just shits on the idea of marriage. It's like, yeah, because your marriage you're miserable, right? Your wife hates being there. It's like, and then when O'Brien is like, Julian, just stop it. He basically, or there's one point where he's like, say that again, motherfuckers implied. It's like, oh shit, never mind.
Yeah, you're making your wife miserable by marrying like this.
Yeah, you career officers. But look at you. You're miserable married.
Like Bashir in this episode. Because he seems like, I think that I get why they wanted to put Bashir with O'Brien. Obviously, they're opposites. And so that's, so the Odo, Quark, and everybody, all these kind of opposites.
Yeah, or else, where else are you going to find tension in a utopic?
Yeah, ladies' man versus the happily married husband. Yeah.
Well, not just that, but like the loudmouth braggart mixed with the quiet, steady man who just, man on the wall who always fixing the problems, the fixer, But like, I think that Bashir, the best way to deal with braggarts, like not like in real life, or even in real life, is the best way to highlight them, like these arrogant people, is to, like, I feel like that they're also encased in their own arrogance. Like that they're trapped. They're victims of their own arrogance. Me and Hugh have had a friend that I would say is probably a victim of arrogance.
Yeah.
And there's been times where I felt like being around him that it wasn't like he would be another way if he could. Yeah. Like he doesn't want to be this way. Like, but he doesn't know another way, and that keeps him from being close to other people. And he realizes that costs him friendships and girlfriends and all of these kinds of things. But he doesn't, it's a compulsion. He doesn't know how to be another way. And I felt like Bashir, there was a scene where Bashir says that offhandedly, and then realizes that it not only hurt O'Brien, but like, O'Brien could kick his ass, probably.
Most definitely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Not only is he armed, but he's a tough,
no question.
He's a tough potato-faced Irish brawler. They're isolated, so the situation would be rife. And he realizes that he fucked up, and he realizes that he didn't mean to offend O'Brien anyway, and now they're in the situation. And so you see, like, just sort of like a look on his face, like, fuck, I did it again. And that's sad, and I that was the part, and you would never. Without that element, without the O'Brien element, you just get the Bashir that we've been dealing with for a season and a half. But with that element, I got, that makes him more lovable. It's, it's the look on a dog's face after he pisses on the carpet. The dog didn't.
You say lovable, I mean like palpable. Like
let's maybe I'm overselling it. Yeah,
I think it makes it a little easier to swallow. I still don't think it doesn't go down in history as one of the great Star Trek relationships.
I think you're right. I'm not going to argue for it because I don't love it either. But I mean, I think that probably most Star Trek fans would say that this is a top 5 relationship.
I'm going to be one of us has to take that point of view, and I will gladly do so. But I mean, we're not there yet because what's great about it is that it builds over the whole series. That by season 7, it's like totally different, but the dynamic still is kind of similar.
Yeah, they don't really let it go. And is that one of the problems with Next Generation is that there's not, like, it seems like Next Generation was such the Picard and Data show that I can't really think of like hard bonding relationships in the rest of the cast.
Right. And then part of that probably is trickled down from just the establishing principles with when Roddenberry was running the show where nobody can fight.
Well, there are a few. Data and Geordi are sort of peers, and there's their relationship. There is Riker and his ex-wife, her ex-fiance, Deanna Troi, and their relationship. There's Dr. Crusher in love with the man who killed her husband and their relationship. So, I mean, right there's like three off the top of my head.
But two of those are romances.
But they don't and they're mostly static. They don't really change and evolve like the Bashir O'Brien. It does a little bit. It slightly does, but it's basically the same game they're playing for those entire.
Okay, yeah, I'll go with that.
None of them ever start off with not.
You might turn me on this yet, but it's not going to happen this episode.
No, I'm not. I'm willing to take. We got time. I'll just kind of ease y'all into it.
Yeah, it seems to me that like the idea is later on in the show, and I don't even remember specifics enough to get into spoiler territory, but it seems like there was episodes where it would be like, oh shit, O'Brien may never talk to Bashir again, and that's wounding to me. You know, or that you know that I yearn for that. You know,
it's interesting to me. I don't even remember that, and this is like my.
I'm not saying a specific. I know, memory.
But I'm just saying it must have made a bigger impact on you at the time than it did me. Mm-hmm. I was probably fine with it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. These characters, they're just fine. They're not rewriting. They're not. They're not what I watched the show for.
Yeah.
So the fact that so much is spent...
Right. Well, Julian's an interesting... We've talked a lot already about the problems with Julian. And when they figure him out, he's interesting only in relation to other characters. Like, and he's the main guy that you get these pairs with that people talk about. It's Julian and O'Brien. And then also...
Julian and Garrick.
Garrick, yeah. And that's when he really becomes... They talk later as an episode down the line that is... pretty divided among the fans called Armageddon Bashir, but they talk about that as the turning point for Bashir, or the actor does. But we won't get in that, but that's also heavily influenced by Garrick.
So I think that they got themselves in a position just because Bashir is he was such a loathsome character idea, and I don't think the actor helped. And then so you have to sort of make it work or write him off. And I don't think I don't think it was a write it off situation. It was just to fix it. And I think they obviously tried.
Right. Well, they wanted to write him off. They tried, and then Berman stood up.
Because Berman was in like love with. He was actually just in love with Alexander Siddig as an actor.
This episode is a little bit like a
right,
what is the phrase, James? A 50-degree day. I mean,
like a 40-degree day.
Yeah, 40. Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's a 40-degree day right in the middle of the season. It's very Star Trek-y, so it's got that going for it. It does have some character development, so it's moving the ball down the field a little bit, so where we get to see a little bit of the interior lives of these people. It's good to see the captain acting like the captain, or the commander acting like a Star Trek captain.
Yeah, I mean, the scene where he's delivering the news to Keiko that O'Brien died, I thought was a great scene. I think like that was...
I did too, yeah.
That I thought that was a really moving scene. I don't know if it should have remained unsaid or they should have made it text. But he almost could have said, I've been through this. I've been through your side of this.
Yeah, it's like, oh man,
yeah,
I've had to do this
been
before.
On your side.
This is my least favorite part.
And that, Keiko took it like Keiko would. Like, okay, I'm ready, give me all the details. I want to see him die. Which is weird, but... She's not that emotional. They do dredge up the Keiko's bitchy about moving to Deep Space Nine stuff again, so we get to re-bring that up. Right. And I think maybe put that to bed.
Like, I think this has got to be the last stop for that, right? I don't think it comes up again. In fact, I think it does come up whenever she goes later on. It's not that big of a spoiler. She goes on another assignment, and it's dealt with it in a little bit more depth between the two of them, but it's not the topic of conversation among the other officers. Wade, we got another rule of acquisition. Do you have that handy?
Yes, we did. Yeah. Because everybody's having their sad moments when they're like commiserating about like O'Brien and Bashir are dead. How are we going to get through this? And then Dax and Kira are at the bar drinking a drink, and then Quark has a pretty heartfelt moment where he like hey, these drinks are on the house. And they're like, what? Because that actually is a pretty big deal for court. And he's like, yeah, I can be thoughtful too. And they're like, okay. And then he's like, oh yeah, they were good customers. Yeah. And then we have the 57th rule of acquisition. Good customers are as rare as latinum. Treasure them, which is a very,
it's very sweet. It's almost this aphorism.
The most
because the rules are least are not that aphoristic.
Yeah. It's the most. Yeah, this is the most emotional rule of acquisition that you have.
It's an interesting. I'm starting to be interested because I'm starting to follow the rules, and I think probably they're just writing them into the story as they need them.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but
most definitely.
Let's just throw in a rule of acquisition that makes my point here. But I'd like to think that there is some sort of that Ira Stephen Bear somewhere has got this overarching thought about it, about what they say in total, other than just, hey, Ferengis are greedy and we were making fun of it. They're actually.
I'm sure he probably thought that out when he wrote the book,
which I may need to read at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at some point I'm going to end up reading some post DS9 novels.
The Garrick, the Flowers of whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I wish you'd found that.
I found this book at a used bookstore for $2. I sent a picture, I waited Hugh over it on my phone. They sent it back and told me it was $80, but I'd already left the store by then.
Yeah, on Amazon, this particular book, because it was written by Andrew Robinson, the actor who played Garrick, wrote a book, a DS9 Garrick book. And this paperback, if you guys ever see it, is worth actual money, is on the secondary market.
So quite a bit of money, yeah.
Yeah, and James let it slip through his fingers.
Yeah.
For $2. $2.
Yeah. What should we get to the end and what we would change about this?
Yeah. The only other thing, Dax has Julian's diaries. She hasn't bothered to read. And then Keiko, they figure out that they're probably they've faked the video because Keiko sees O'Brien drink coffee and she notices the timestamp and says, well, nope, it's late in the afternoon. My husband would never drink coffee that late. They faked this video. My husband's still alive. And then they do some tricks with the runabouts to get away from the Talaskians and get back to the station. O'Brien's in recovery looking at a mug that his daughter painted badly because she's 3. It's fine.
She's got talent.
Says, I'd like some coffee. And then you have, going back to an original series, it feel like you end with a joke, basically. Like, ha, ha, ha. And because O'Brien says, I'd like some coffee now. What? You never drink coffee in the afternoon. What are you talking about? I always do.
So the impetus that made her skeptical of the videotape was her being mistaken about his rituals.
Which just goes to show that they're, whatever the state of their marriage, they don't know each other as well as they think they do.
I think that can we segue real quick into what I would change, because mine's directly related to
the ending. Okay, yes. I think we should start it.
And I don't know if we might overlap a little bit. If we do, just interject, and we can dovetail into what you guys would change. But the whole point of Keiko discovering the discrepancy is to show the fact that your coworkers know you, but your loved ones and your family know you better. Mm-hmm. And Bashir tried to paint Keiko as a weakness. And in that moment, it was a strength.
Yeah.
And the fact that they disregarded that at the end for a little bit of light comedy, I felt was a little bit disappointing. Because Cisco's wife is dead because she went on a trip with him. Because he was in the service and she decided to, bring her family on board, and she's dead. Mm-hmm. Stakes are high. But you do need this reminder that having your family with you is not, a liability or a weakness like Bashir paints it. And Keiko wonderfully illustrates that. And so by having the little bit of light comedy at the end, I think it's a little bit at the expense of that moment in the middle.
Maybe, yeah.
That's what I would change.
And O'Brien tells Julian marriage, it's the greatest adventure of all. And do you guys are married? Do you agree? I'll be the mad bachelor around town.
Yeah. My wife doesn't listen to the podcast, so I don't mind saying that. I think that it's a little platitudinous.
Sure.
I think that it's a little easy to write that. And I think that, and my big thing is, I think both of their sharings are too easy. But on this, I think that I think he's right. I think Hugh's right in that it actually has a particular sort of function in your life, is that you are not a nobody, that somebody knows you very well. And when you die, not only will it affect someone emotionally, but they they're there to notice the imperceptible or to be a part, you know, that like my wife just kind of knows me, you know,
Right.
and that if that, and not in a general way, but like in a,
No.
and not in a biblical, but no, but
Well,
like,
well,
you know,
that
but
too.
just like, you know, if something's bothering you,
You have
does, actually.
more than one
No,
child.
but, like, I have, I don't want to brag, but I've had sex
I
with
was like,
my
well,
wife.
okay.
No, like,
Tell me about.
and
no,
I
never mind.
suspect that O'Brien and Keiko have had sex too. No, but like that that I think that it shows that sort of that strength and that sort of thing. I don't necessarily know if like
I don't know. Why does Keiko's daughter have to wear a visor to see now?
She's yeah.
Why does Molly O'Brien have to wear a visor?
Right,
just
for
like Jordy
being
to
part
see
Irish,
things?
she's really
So-
her. You know, she's not as pale as you'd think.
She's pretty dark skinned. Yeah.
So, all right, I'm sorry. I had to throw that in
Yeah,
there. Go ahead, James.
No, I agree with him. I think that was the point of the story. I don't mind subverting it for a little bit of humor at the end. It's old TV. It's old timey TV to write that kind of joke at the end.
Right. It was like a murder
Right.
she wrote.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. And I don't think this episode, you know, I think the whole point of our podcast is that there's times where this show reaches an upper echelon of quality that bespeaks the quality that becomes like sort of ubiquitous in television now. This wasn't one of those episodes. This got up to murder.
Well, that's just what I would change. But yes,
this gets up to Murder She Wrote level, and so that didn't bother me. I don't know, but like I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that like that didn't. But I think you're right in that it does subvert the main theme of the episode, which is that that Keiko's not just attachment, but her perception of O'Brien saved them.
And Bashir.
Save Bashir.
She should. O'Brien and Keiko's marriage saved Bashir's ass, and he never even acknowledges that.
Oh, not only
really.
that, but you also have the parallel. You have the parallel of him trying to have that kind of bond with Dax. He gives her the advice so that she understands him, and because they're not married, because they're not in love, because they haven't went on that adventure together, she doesn't give a shit. I'm sure there was something in Bashir's diaries that could have been revelatory to Dax looking at the video too, but he didn't have that kind of bond. Because he's above that, according to what he said while being arrogant.
Right, but then he says he's not because he was in love with a ballerina named Palace Delon.
Yeah, that's such a dumb. Yeah.
Who with exquisite feet. It's all about good arches.
Which, by the way, ballerinas do not have good feet.
No, they're gross.
They
Well,
have.
that's what made her an exception.
Oh yeah, but her arches were pretty good. You had to have strong arches, right? I guess.
I guess maybe.
You can't have fallen arches.
What would you guys? What?
My
don't
biggest
know.
thing is that I thought that both of those combinations, that the thing I would change is that go deeper, man. Don't just, I had a girlfriend once and I had to dump her to stay at my job. I would have rather those revelations been about everything with Bashir is this facile, like that he's a coos hound. And I don't like, they can't get away from that for a minute to just make a story about Bashir. We do know from later on in the show, Bashir had a fucked up upbringing. And I know that he might be trying to hide that. That can be an emotional thing that you can share. Share something better and deeper and personal. Not about I was in love, but that, you know, I don't know, that I'm an arrogant asshole and I don't have any friends because everybody hates me.
Yeah.
You know,
Well-
that seems like a thing to share. And then O'Brien can, you know, like, it needs to stay in the sort of marriage realm with Keiko because that was the question at hand. But, like, I just felt like that all of that sharing, I don't mean like they should have got out a hanky and cried.
Right.
Because that's not how that wouldn't have read well right either.
Right. Well, I'd see it didn't bother me as much because it sets up that O'Brien is just an enlisted man. Bashir is a career officer or whatever. So he gave up the life that O'Brien has to go for the action adventure James T. Kirk lifestyle of zipping through space, and he had to choose his career over family, basically, which is a common enough trope.
But O'Brien is always going on these wet work missions. O'Brien is the one that O'Brien is James T. Kirk, but with a wife. Like, O'Brien is like living this adventurous life. He's out in space. He's meeting crazy things. He's been to war. He's constantly going on these like wet works operations for some reason. Like, he is leading a life of adventure. Like, and he also has a family at home.
Yeah, O'Brien's been in the shit.
Yeah, he's been
But
in the shit.
he's not living a life of prestige, which is part of what the currency.
I think you're parsing things out a little bit there. Whenever you're splitting hairs, I think I get what you both are saying, and I think that nobody's gonna live exactly.
Well,
yeah, I agree.
But
I think that it's that, and not to. Oh my God!
I've seen James T. Kirk, and you, sir, are no James Kirk O'Brien.
Yes.
I mean Bashir.
But I'm gonna.
Right.
Yes, I don't want to reduce them down to their ethnic dishes, but I mean, I'm going to.
Okay. Oh boy.
O'Brien is a meat and potatoes guy, and Bashir is like a chicken
spicy curry.
He's a spicy curry, and he's trying to live a more exotic, more interesting life than O'Brien is trying to live. But O'Brien is living a more adventurous life than Bashir is at this point, because Bashir is an emotional cripple, and that's what the story needs to be about. That's who the character is. You can't fix that. He is emotionally broken for whatever reason. People don't like him. I don't like him. O'Brien doesn't like him. And I think that there should be a moment where O'Brien sees that in him and realizes that this guy's broken and obnoxious.
Yeah.
We had a friend, Wade, in high school. This is the second time I've evoked a past friendship vaguely. We've had a friend in high school that we were friends with. We wouldn't have been if he wasn't such a vulnerable and unique man.
That's true.
And I think that that's kind of the nature of their relationship. It's a lot more real, and it's a lot deeper between them two as the show goes on. But it is because Bashir is essentially unlovable that O'Brien can't help but love him. And I think that needed to be a little bit more put forth.
Yeah, you've sold me. You've sold me. I think it works fine, but yeah, I like that much more.
Did we get into what?
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like I already covered most of what I would change. I would have said it in the Gamma Quadrant somewhere, have them come across this planet that's been at war and or solve it, or at least you can still start in media race or whatever, but at least set up that that's what's happened. Because right now, you don't know where these people are located. They're an hour from the station, but we never see them again, as far as I know. And they don't have any. Mm-hmm. They don't actually feel like they actually exist anywhere.
To sort of reinforce this point, I think maybe the show is at the point, and maybe Star Trek, at this point in the Star Trek canon, we're maybe at the point where we need to just stop planet hopping because we've developed a continuity. So, like on instance on Game of Thrones, if they just went to some new house, I would need to explain how this house fits into all the other people I know. And I think maybe fit it into the continuity of the show of Game of Thrones. And I think that maybe Star Trek was at this point where you're you just go to some random ass planet and you don't tell me, are they in the Federation? Are they aligned with, where are they in the Cardassian Bajoran thing? And these things need to be a fit in the story.
They do, especially for DS9. But also when you do that, you piss off some Star Trek fans, because
who are absolutists.
That's what Star Trek is about, is exploring people that you haven't met before. And
each episode, and then it gets to be Twilight Zone, and each episode is unique to the episode that came before. But that's just not. I felt like this may be in the transitional stage of that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I like about DS9, how it does Trek differently. You're living with the Bajorans the whole time, and the Cardassians, and then eventually the Dominion.
And these races are set. There's the Breen, there's the Klingons,
they're all everything that's on the new Star Trek Risk that's out. The Breen even have a location on there. Yeah, and the one other thing I would change, I've already mentioned before, is come on, man, just don't call them harvesters if you're going to waste that name.
Cool.
Harvesters. I want a fucking rover from the prisoner. That's what I want to see when I think of a harvester, not just a Saren.
Well, you spend a lot of time as an audience member wondering if you missed something for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, because it does set it up like the goo. I guess it's goo because they're in these little, like, you know, when you have the pneumatic tube thing at the bank, they're just full of like some sort of goop.
Right, yeah. And then they got muon radiation.
You feel like that there's like they film it with these close-ups, and like you feel like that I'm gonna have to, okay, I gotta pay attention to the goo. All the filmmaking is telling me the goo is gonna be really centrally important, and it's not.
No.
I mean, I guess it's important that some gets on O'Brien, but that's about it. But
yeah. So yeah, that's basically all I really have. I actually like the core of this episode. The dramatic scenes between, I thought, were really good, well done. But yeah, like we said, the stuff on the outside is kind of rotten.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so.
I agree. It's ultimately when we do our White Album episode at the end of the season, the Killer No Filler episode, I think this will probably be on the list that'll stay.
It might for me too. It's because of the O'Brien stuff. All right.
Yeah, but other than that, so there you go. That's probably the best I can say about it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how I feel when we wrap up the season. Where I think about this. I think it's I don't know if they really moved the ball down the field very much for me, but it'll be interesting to revisit that. It's a good point. The IMDb, we had 550 people vote on this. You guys want to guess how many stars the IMDb
6.7.
users gave?
7.3.
James, pretty darn close.
Wow.
7.4.
Oh, I thought I was going to go over, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are starting to like these episodes.
You thought you were being comically generous. And
I know that when I was reading about the history of the episode, both Pillar and Ira Stephen Bear are both very back-patty about this episode.
Yeah.
And I know that it's key to the O'Brien Bashir friendship, which is more popular than we give it credit for on this podcast. But yeah, so
it's probably more popular than I give it credit for. But you guys. I
didn't want to single you out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we all know how you feel about O'Brien, and none of us like Bashir very much.
I'll own that. And I think that the case for O'Brien being made a stronger character, other than just a guy who pushed buttons whenever Picard needed to go somewhere, has gotten a lot stronger. Like, I think the case for Bashir is better now than if we're doing the State of the Union type address for Star Trek Deep Space Nine at this point, I say, our Bashir growth is a bit stagnant, but on the O'Brien front, we're growing.
I agree. Making him putting him in the shit in this pass.
Yeah.
Adding that element was just, and I don't know when it happened, but I think it happened this season. Or somewhere where they just...
No, it happened in season 1.
They just started talking about that he had some sort of war pass.
Yeah, well,
he was an enlisted.
I feel like they set that up they start doing that in Next Generation before he even comes on Deep Space Nine. He has a history with the Cardassians. He's already knows what they do to prisoners when.
I guess so. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I've mentioned before that I kind of like about O'Brien is that he saw some extreme stuff. He was in the shit, and that nobody appreciated the transporter room cushiness job.
Right.
As a result,
Mm-hmm.
he got to be on the flagship. Everything worked.
He met his wife. He had a kid.
He had a favorite transporter room.
So yeah, no, I agree with you. Bashir is working pretty good. I even like
now. If we can have one of our audience members that's really good with Photoshop, please Photoshop Molly O'Brien wearing Geordie's visor. We'd really appreciate it.
In fact, we're gonna have a motif where we're going to constantly question her parentage. Various cast members of the Next Generation could be her father.
We're gonna put a Riker beard on her or something.
A Riker beard, or her playing a trombone.
You can give her Data eyes.
Yes, that would.
All right.
So,
next week, what do we got to look forward to, gentlemen?
The next week's episode is called the something whisper something, maybe the whispers or whispering or something, and it's about they send O'Brien on another wet works operation. He comes back and he's hearing voices.
Okay, what we like about O'Brien is his Jason Bourne past.
Yes. So I think that's what I think we're in for a slew of O'Brien episodes.
Okay.
It seems like O'Brien is mentioned in the next several.
All right. So yeah, we've been in the doldrums. I think they're saving the good episodes for the end of the season again. Maybe.
Yeah, we are in a few episodes. We are introduced to the Maquis.
Oh, we have The Wire. I think is in this season, which is like what fan favorite. I think
is that when they try to take down Avon Barksdale in space.
That's it. It's all about subspace communications and listening in on those.
Yes.
Burner
tricorders.
Communicators.
Yes. Right. All right, guys.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for this week, right, guys?
I think
so. Right.
All right. 3 to beam out.
All right, and we're back. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It seems like it was a pretty good episode as far as we're concerned. I know over the years I haven't really softened on my stance on Bashir and O'Brien. That relationship never really did blossom to something terribly engrossing for me personally. But, you know, these guys, my co-hosts, they seem to enjoy it. And, you know, I don't think this episode wasn't so bad. There are a couple things about this episode that I'd like to share with you. And then I'll move on to some other information I want to talk to you guys about. Michael Pillar commented, quote, "I thought it was an excellent show. I was very pleased with the way it worked out. Those two guys work very well together." That's from the Captain's Log Supplemental, the unauthorized guide to the new Trek voyages. Ira Stephen Bear commented, quote, "I like the show. I think it takes the Bashir and O'Brien relationship to another step, and Colby did a good job directing," end quote. The Deep Space Logbook, a second season companion. So a couple bland, those are really bland run-of-the-mill comments about this show. You know, not much to say about that. This episode was nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Hairstyling for a Series. So I have no idea whose hair in this particular episode stood out for the Emmys, but that's pretty cool. I didn't know that Star Trek was even in the running for that at all. We talked about a book in this episode, and way back in 2016, this book that James found at a secondhand store for like $1 or $2, I can't remember, was at that time going for like $80. And the book is called A Stitch in Time by Andrew Robinson. Andrew Robinson, of course, is the actor who plays Garrick on Deep Space Nine. Now, here it is, 2021. I thought I'd go back and I'd look to see if they've reprinted the book since we aired this episode, and if not, how hard it is to track down the book. Okay, so I've got some bad news for you. The book is still out of print, and the price of the book has only gone up since then. I'm on Alibris, which is like an aggregate book selling website, and they have one copy that's going right now used for $219. They have another copy that's new that's going for $337.97. They have another used copy that's considered in good shape for $343.63. eBay has one right now, and the bidding is starting at $159, which is crazy to me. That this is what's going on. The good news is, if you want to read it, you can. The bad news is you have to do it through Amazon. It's available for Kindle download for $8.99. Unfortunately, if you want to support Jeff Bezos, you have to go through Amazon to read this book. Now, interesting enough, DailyStarTrekNews.com had an article from February 10th of this year saying fans petition asked for Star Trek Deep Space Nine's Andrew Robinson to make Garrick biography audiobook. It looks like on change.org there's a petition to make A Stitch in Time into an audiobook read by Garrick. Quote, during a Reddit AMA in 2016, the petition says, Robinson was asked several times if he would make an audiobook of A Stitch in Time, and he replied nothing would give him more pleasure, end quote. But it's not up to him. It's up to Simon & Schuster, who owns the rights to the book. So, the fans want an audiobook of Garrett coming back to life and reading his autobiography. And it doesn't look like I couldn't find it if that was going to happen at all. It's too bad. So, anyway, if you are interested in Garrick or Star Trek books, it's kind of a fun deep dive. And if you happen to be in a secondhand bookstore and you see A Stitch in Time, you should grab it because it's a hard book to find and probably pretty entertaining since it's actually written by the actor Andrew Robinson who played him in the show. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. It's nice to catch up with all you all Star Trek fans. You should check out our Patreon where we post on a wide variety of topics, audio content, nearly weekly, new stuff for our patrons. And check out our David Lynch mini-series podcast where we go through every single David Lynch movie. So, all right. Well, thanks again for listening. See you next time on the Rules of Acquisition Remix. One to beam out.
Did you know that I have a lot to think about? I think I need a wife. I guess like a robot wife, but like a sexy robot wife. Lots to choose from, not just the sexy ones we all think of, like that one from Metropolis or R2-D2. Everybody knows they are hot and fuckable. I personally have always wanted to come home to the 1962 GM Unimate and SRI International's Shaky the Robot. Everybody says Asimo, but for me I want to put it into the Mars Pathfinder. I think some podcasts have more reviews than us. Doesn't that piss you off? Review us, review us, review us. We need to feel loved. Review us, review us, review us. Please.